Hello everyone and welcome to the last video presentation of the semester. I am Kailin. I will be taking you through the key concepts covered in this week's reading. Jung-hee will critique the concepts and Abhishek will walk you through a very interesting case study, so do get excited for that. The book we're going to be talking about is Administrative Burden, Policymaking by Other Means. It is authored by two very esteemed professors from Georgetown University, Pamela Herd and Donald Moynihan. The book was published in 2019, has received critical acclaim and won several awards for its novel idea, articulating an important problem that had yet to be specifically researched until now. So what is administrative burden and why does it matter? Under any context in which the state regulates private behavior or structures how they seek public services is a venue in which the state may impose administrative burdens on its citizens. Components include learning, compliance, and psychological costs, and these will be explained later. The author's stance is that while policies will inevitably create friction, these can be minimized by reducing the burdens or shifting them to the government. The book builds this concept of administrative burdens as a first step to reducing the negative effects of it, which leads me to my next point, which is that these burdens matter because it affects citizens' fundamental rights like voting, it affects accessibility to benefits that can improve the quality of life, and lastly, the effectiveness and reach of public programs hinge on the level of burden. Ultimately, administrative burdens determine how citizens experience the government, so negative experiences over the long term would obviously not bode well with citizens, so governments have to care. As promised, let's talk about the costs of administrative burden. First up, we have the learning costs. This is basically the time and effort spent in learning about how to go about doing something, be it filing for financial aid or food stamps. These costs can be very high, especially for policies that are not universal. Next, compliance cost is the cost where the burden of proof is on the applicant. Examples of this include submitting numerous documents and having to obtain endorsement letters to prove eligibility for financial aid. Finally, psychological costs include the loss of dignity and, more commonly, emotional distress. These can surface from frustration at dealing with learning and compliance costs or deeper feelings of shame when application processes make applicants feel like they are somehow being judged. The cost of administrative burdens are obviously pretty significant, so what are the implications of this? There are three major themes of administrative burden. Firstly, these burdens are consequential. These burdens are pervasive in terms of the cost that citizens bear, and they influence citizens' perception of the government. In the book, it explores how the excessively long duration it takes to file taxes, the arduous process of filing for college financial aid, and the complex application process for citizenship can lead to significant expenses of time, psychological stress and money, and hindering many from access to education. Secondly, burdens are distributive. Those with fewer resources tend to face more administrative burdens, even though they have fewer resources to manage and overcome them. For example, means-tested policies require beneficiaries to prove their eligibility for each benefit, even though the applicants are often from the same group. As such, those who need the benefits of means-tested policies most are turned away by burdens and miss out, and a vicious cycle ensues as those with fewer resources that need more help face larger burdens and stay stuck with few resources. Last, and probably most disturbing, is that burdens are constructed. In many cases, political actors often see burdens as a policy tool to achieve an ideological goal. The authors cite examples of how the US government failed to adapt immigration policies in the post-Depression era. They also talk about how states rejected an easier system of tax filing. These had dire consequences. It was nearly impossible for Jews seeking refuge to apply to leave Germany in the 1930s, and large proportions of potential applicants stayed and perished. Regarding the lack of tax reform, there was the prevalence of a tax system where taxpayers spent an average of 7.6 billion hours on tax returns yearly.
So what factors shape and affect the magnitude of the administrative burdens of citizens? First is human capital and inequality. The author states that unequal distribution of human capital leads to unequal distribution of administrative burden. Human capital, such as education, social networks, and health, help people cope with administrative burden, but unfortunately, this is not equally distributed. Those who need government services the most may not have the human capital that help them overcome administrative burdens. Plus, the stress of poverty could amplify the effect of administrative burdens, leading people to make poor long-term choices. Second, the government's administrative capacity plays a big role. Financial resources can determine whether the government can minimize or shift burdens away from citizens. And individuals within an organization who have more administrative expertise can use their skills to design systems that are more easily accessible or put more barriers. Through organizational capacity, the effects of burdens may be strengthened or ameliorated depending on discretions exerted by those who create the burdens or directly provide the services to the people. Political beliefs matter because politicians sometimes deliberately construct administrative burdens to achieve policy goals. First, creation or reduction of burdens is a political process. Fights over burdens are fights about political values, and these values are converted into bureaucratic logics and procedure. Second, partisan attitudes towards specific policy areas are pretty predictable once we know a party's stance in a policy area. Third, the preferences of political actors often determine the nature of burden. That is, policymakers can deliberately alter burdens to generate a behavioral response that aligns with their preferred policy outcome. Next, the opaque nature of administrative burdens makes them valuable as a form of policymaking. Here, the author states because of this nature, administrative burdens are part of the so-called hidden politics where big policy changes are made out of public view. Finally, political stakeholders play an important role in determining burdens. One example authors cite is welfare. Burdens are imposed on purpose to limit claims on public money, targeted especially at groups with little political power. Role of the third parties are important as non-state organizations can construct or reduce burdens or mediate or amplify policy's effects. They can act as political stakeholders that lobby to impose or reduce burdens. They can alter the cost citizens face because their explanations could reduce or increase knowledge about a program, the learning cost, and their help in getting necessary documents can reduce compliance costs. As service providers that can alter costs because they have rooms to buffer burdens and be flexible. But the third parties can be the object of administrative burdens as well, as governments create incentives or limit access in their activities. Our team delved a bit deeper to see how the academia received the overall administrative burden framework. The general evaluation was that the author successfully came up with a much-needed framework that helps understanding distinct mechanisms of how burdens fall on citizens. Of course, this is not the first time such burdens have been explored. In public management, we have the concept of red tape, and in economics, we've got friction costs, which respectively lead to compliance and learning cost. But the general evaluation is that Herd Moynihan's framework expands to other areas of policymaking by especially shedding light on the political aspect. However, there were also views that the framework the authors offer does not consider the counterfactual instances. That's when these administrative burdens could be beneficial in protecting and serving societal needs. One example of that is how the state imposes administrative burdens to restrict private actions that could harm public interests. Burdens in environmental regulation, consumer protection, and workplace safety increase social welfare. The academia suggests that future research could delve on how different types of burdens intersect and see how psychological barriers could be divided into different categories and estimate the relative magnitude of each cost in specific policy settings.
Hi, this is Abhishek, and I'll be walking you through our case study on Hazara refugees in Indonesia and the interactions of the UNHCR through their application processes. There are some 7,000 asylum seekers and refugees from Afghanistan and Pakistan, and many of them are from the Hazara community. Here, we will learn that burdens are constructed because the refugee application process is mandated under the UNHCR 1951 Convention and are distributive as well because they are onerous to those fleeing, such as Hazara refugees from religious persecution. It is interesting to note how heavily the refugees rely on their personal networks to learn about the processes to get from Keita to Jakarta, and also within Indonesia itself on how to live an economical life.
If you are, for example, if you are family, you cannot go alone. You have to take your complete family with you till to reach that UN office. Like you have to take 2 uncoats from here to get to the station, and from the station take a train, go to Jakarta, and from there then you have to take another uncoat to reach there. So it's like a bit difficult, like the complete day it will be wasted for you. So brother, don't ask me, they get too much stress, and plus they keep on crying because they're like they don't have place to sit. So you have to sit outside on the main street, okay, on the footpath. You have to sit till they call you. So maybe I'm just told you before that sometimes it take 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. Once I went with my family, we have waited almost 6 hours or 5 hours outside. It was hot also. It was difficult for the children's, like they feel hungry, they have to go to washroom, this all things, no, they feel hot. So like there's no proper arrangement and all, and they have small place. So like the place also is small, like all the refugees when they go there, so it's difficult for them also to adjust each and everyone inside. The thing is what, like in this one, like we have went, I think so 4 or 5 times for counseling, to tell them like what we are facing difficulties, these all things about the children's, the time process. So each and every time you'll go there, they're saying you have to wait, and refugees don't have right. Okay, so they don't have right for the resettlement. So if they're saying like this and all, like it's getting difficult for the refugees, uh, they'll get more stress. So the thing is what, like they should give them hope or something and all, no, like even the refugees also will be happy while going back home. So you'll get tension from there when you come back home. Your wife and children will be waiting, saying what happened, what happened. When you come home, you'll say the things what the UN people said, the counselor. So like the complete family, children's, everyone will get tension about this, no? So they don't give you a proper answer. Like when some of them, like if you know how to speak English, so it's good for you. If there is no one, like there are people, they use a translator, interpreter for them to translate in UN. So for them, like it's difficult. Like if you saying something to the interpreter, they will translate it the same to same. It is okay if they mistranslate it. So it's like there are many cases which happen like this. So I'm just trying to say like the when we go there, they don't give a proper answer to you. So they'll keep on twisting the answers. Like if you have some questions, they'll twist the questions and give you a different answer. Like it's not relevant. Like they're like the things what they are saying. Like it's just it feels like that they just want to you to quickly finish the counseling and go back. So this is the thing, like they are not, they should give some proper information. They should give hope to the refugee community. So this is the thing, main problem.
This map shows the journey that the refugees take to get from their hometown to UNHCR. First, they take an angkut from Cicerao to a train station in Bogor, and the train brings them to Jakarta itself, where they take another angkut to get from the train station to UNHCR. In this segment of the video, we learned that burdens are consequential on the lives of the refugees, with various costs faced. Prominent among them is the psychological cost of traveling with their entire families and children and bearing the uninviting environment. Secondly, there are compliance costs involved, as they have to follow the strict rules and regulations of the UNHCR, often leaving without having their questions answered.
Once you are inside the office, then they will ask you the questions like where you come, which nationality you are. So whatever details they will ask you, so they'll feed in the system. And plus, if you are like if you have any documents, your passport or national ID card, anything, so they will take a copy of it for their records. So once the interview is finished, they'll give you like a paper card. It's like a piece of paper. So in that one, like your UN card number, that UNCHR number, your name, your nationality, your date of birth, everything is mentioned. So once you'll get that, like that one is like when you will get the first time, it's for like 1 month, 2 months like this. So after that, when it gets expired, then you have to go back again to UN office to get it renewed. So after that, like the process, when it takes around, some people they'll get their refugee status within a year, some of them within 2 years. So for ours, like it was like 2 years. After 2 years, we got our refugee status. So once you'll get a refugee status, they'll give you a small card. So in that one, like the complete details are mentioned of you, your name, your place, or whatever you are. So that will be the card till the end of the time, like you are here, till when you are in Indonesia. So that card will be like with you. So the card also have validity, like before it was to be 1 year, then later on they increased 2 years, then later on again, now it's like, for example, if you're getting refugee status, they will give you a card which the time limit is like around 3 years, something like that. So once that get expired, then you have to go back again to get it renewed. Now because of this COVID-19, like what they are doing, they're doing it online. So my card also is going to expire on this December, coming December. So what they did, they give us a call. They were saying that, like, our details. So then we have to email them the complete things, like the whatever, like for example, if your son is born here, so they need the photo, because the children's their face changes like after 2 years, 3 years. So that's why they need a fresh photo. So you have to give your details to them back again. So once they'll get it done, they'll email it to you, a soft copy of the cards. So that one you can take a copy and keep it with you till it gets expired again. So this process, like it's for till the refugee. So after the refugee, you'll get interview for the resettlement. So that is like it will take around maybe 2 interviews for the resettlement, and the third interview it will be like for embassy. Embassy people, they will call you, they'll ask whatever the first day which you have given the details. According to that, they will ask you question and answer. So after the embassy, once you are selected, then you will get processed for this medical. So after the medical, then you will get your visa and your tickets, then you will fly. So nowadays, like there are cases like which they are here since 2013, 12 also. So they are still waiting for their resettlement. So no one got resettled yet. So the resettlement process is quite slow.
This segment of the video emphasizes that the constructed burdens leave the refugees feeling uncertain, as there is not a clear timeline of them progressing through the various stages of the application processes. Compliance costs appear again as refugees have to follow each stage of the process and submit documents, answer questions to prove that they are deserving, often experiencing a loss of dignity in the process. With that, we would like to thank you for watching our presentation. I hope you learned something out of this, and now these are our references.